Nigerian workers on International Workers' Day, praising their strength, dedication and love for the country despite the challenges they face at work. His message was personally signed and released today through his media aide, Eseme Eyibo. In a statement, Akpabio highlighted the importance of workers across different sectors. He acknowledged the difficulties workers face, including the rising cost of living and pressures at work, adding that the Senate is committed to improving workers' welfare through better laws and policies. Akpabio also called on employers to take better care of their workers, noting that a well-treated workforce is key to national growth.
However, Nigeria's organized labor has declared that the country is drifting toward a dangerous tipping point, warning of a collapsing social contract, a failing economy, and a worsening security crisis that could force workers off their jobs nationwide. At the 2026 May Day celebration held at the Eagle Square, Abuja, leaders of the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, Joe Ajaero and Festus Osifo, respectively delivered a joint speech that combined stark economic analysis, political warnings, and an unmistakable threat of mass action if conditions do not improve. They described Nigeria as a nation where poverty tightens its grip daily, institutions are weakening, and citizens are increasingly left to fend for themselves in the face of violence and economic hardship. The Labour leaders reminded the nation of the central role workers play in sustaining the economy, contrasting it sharply with their current condition. NLC and TUC argued that Nigeria's economic model has produced a distorted outcome, including paper growth without jobs, stability without prosperity, and reform without relief. Looking ahead, Labour signaled a more assertive political role at the 2027 general elections approach, vowing to support only the candidates committed to workers' welfare and national development.
In a related development, as Nigeria marks Workers' Day 2026, experts have called for improved welfare for workers through enhanced health benefits, better transportation systems, and policies aimed at strengthening the Naira. A veteran Labour leader, Dr. Bashir Oluyole, and the Nigerian Union of Journalists chairman of the Correspondence Chapel in Oluyole State, Comrade Yinka Adeniro, made the call while speaking on workers' welfare on BCOS Television's Current Affairs program AM 120. Olamide Wolabi monitored the program and presents the details.
Workers' Day is observed annually on May 1st to celebrate the contributions of workers to national development. Speaking on BCS AM 120, the NUJ chairman of the Correspondence Chapel in Oyo State, Comrade Yinka Adeniro, noted that discussions on workers' welfare often focus largely on public sector employees, with those in the private sector receiving less attention. He also identified negligence and poor work attitude among some workers as challenges affecting productivity across both sectors. Comrade Adeniro, however, called on government to adopt results-oriented measures in the public sector, similar to those obtainable in the private sector, especially in revenue-generating agencies, to boost efficiency and productivity.
What I think has changed in the reality of the Nigerian worker is just things are going from bad to worse. And I wouldn't blame Nigerian workers for their plight. We have a situation where the monetary value, what they earn for their effort, keeps losing value. In terms of figure, you see figure rising. In terms of number, you see numbers increasing. But in terms of value, you see value falling. Now, you tell me, years back, workers' minimum wage talks about 18,000, talks about 21,000, 31,000. Now it's 80,000. But the question before us is, this number increasing, what is the value? Is value also increasing is value depreciating. A lot of times when we hear the figures, the numbers increasing, the numbers rising, oh, we clap, we jubilate. We at times even harass the workers, at least your peers increase. So you too increase what you are doing, increase your way of living and whatever. But what we don't know underlying the fact is that even despite the increase, despite the rise in figure, the value, the purchasing strength and the power of that figure, what about it?
Also on the program, veteran labor leader Dr. Bashir Oluyole said that while hard work can bring satisfaction, it does not necessarily guarantee a decent standard of living. He explained that many Nigerian workers earn what he described as survival wage rather than a living wage. Dr. Oluyole added that strengthening the naira, particularly by encouraging leaders to patronize the local currency, would improve purchasing power and enhance the living conditions of workers.
When it comes to negotiating for minimum wage, two things come into play in determining the price or the amount. The first one is what can make a worker feel fulfilled on daily basis, not monthly basis. Because only someone that sees the end of the month can say that I was fulfilled throughout the last month. A contract between you and government, you have fulfilled your own, you have not fulfilled theirs. Your own is to go to the office and perform the job. Theirs is to pay you a decent or living wage, a survival wage. They are not paying us a living wage. They are paying us a survival wage. What they are paying us is let us pay him so that he can come to the office maybe 20 times in a month. So you feel fulfilled between you and your creator that you have contributed your own part, you are playing your own part, but you feel unfulfilled, that you are unable to extract the fulfillment of that promise by your employer that you are going to live well.
Both speakers urged government at all levels to implement policies that will improve the overall quality of life for Nigerian workers. Oluyole, BCOS News.
Meanwhile, the government of Oyo State said it remains dedicated to fortifying the state's security framework by furnishing security operatives with necessary logistical resources. Oyo State Governor Engineer Seyi Makinde stated this during the Workers' Day celebration at the Lake Salami Sports Complex, Adamasingba, Ibadan. BCOS reporter Olamikbosi Ishola brings the details.
Workers' Union under the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress assembled at Lake Salami Sports Complex, Adamasingba, Ibadan, to commemorate this year's Workers' Day. In his remarks, the Oyo State Governor, Engineer Seyi Makinde, reiterated that prioritizing the security of lives and property of the people in the state will be upheld. The governor was represented by Professor Musba Babatude, the secretary to the state government, commended the labor leaders for their collaborative efforts in promoting the welfare of workers.
We have actually invested a lot in security in Oyo State, from the grassroots vigilante to the Amotekun security network, in terms of recruitment, in terms of giving them equipment, in terms of promoting interagency collaboration, in terms of providing technological services that can actually aid rapid response and support effective service delivery of our security agencies. Recently, we just procured 2 aircraft that will be used for surveillance. We also carried out a lot of clearance operation, both by the police as well as from armed forces, across all the length and breadth of Oyo State. So we've been able to secure the Oyo State environment for the workers in Oyo State to be able to deliver services as at when.
In separate remarks, Comrade Kayode Martins, the state chairman of NLC, and Comrade Bosun Olabiyi, TUC counterpart, stressed the significance of workers serving as catalysts for the positive change within their respective domains.
In Oyo State, while we acknowledge the efforts of the government in certain areas, we must emphasize that more needs to be done. We thank our local government, His Excellency Governor Seyi Makinde, for the prompt and full implementation of the new minimum wage, timely payment of salaries, pensions, and investment in job growth.
The Asayin of Isayin Obasefiu Oyebola and veteran labor leaders Comrade Oluyole praised Oyo workers for their significant contributions to the development of Oyo State.
It is a notorious fact, and we want to say this, that we have never had a governor that is more worker friendly in the history of Oyo State than Governor Oluyole. He has been the most sympathetic to the workers' cause in the history of Oyo State.
The theme for this year is insecurity and poverty, threats to conducive work environment. Olamiposi Ishola, BCS News.
In a related development, the Oyo State Council of the Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) has been described as one of the most forward-looking and mature labour unions in recent history. This assertion was made by the State Commissioner for Information, Prince Dotun Oyelade, who led the management of the ministry to the NLC Secretariat in Ibadan for a courtesy visit in solidarity with workers on the occasion of the 2026 Workers' Day celebrations. The Commissioner noted that Governor Seyi Makinde has kept his promise of ensuring payment of worker salaries on or before the 25th of every month. He mentioned the sustain of the 13th month salary and the fact that the Governor Makinde's administration has three times increased workers' salaries, even as the workforce expanded significantly due to an unprecedented recruitment policy. He added that over 18 billion naira is paid monthly as salaries to the over 130,000 strong workforce in the state, representing an increase of over 800% compared to the 2019 baseline. In his remarks, Chairman of the Nigeria Labour Congress Oyo State Council, Comrade Kayode Martins, noted that Governor Makinde has taken deliberate steps to restore dignity to retirees through structured gratuity payments and the clearance of long-standing arrears.
This broadcast of Newscope comes to you from the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State, Ibadan. Operations across federal universities and inter-university centers have been disrupted from today as the Joint Action Committee of the Non-Academic Staff Union of Education and the associated institutions and the Senior Staff Association of Nigeria University, SANU, confirmed the commencement of a nationwide strike. The unions conveyed their decision in a letter addressed to the Minister of Education, Tunji Alausa, citing the federal government's failure to conclude ongoing renegotiations and present a fresh offer on allowances. The letter, signed by NASU General Secretary Peters Adeyemi and SANU President Mohammed Ibrahim, noted that the members had mandated the leadership to act if the government failed to conclude negotiations by April 30th. The union said the industrial action became inevitable following what they described as the government's inability to avert the crisis through meaningful engagement. The strike is expected to halt administrative and support services in federal tertiary institutions, raising concerns over another round of disruptions in Nigeria's university system, which has faced recurring industrial disputes in recent years.
The National Economic Council, NEC, has approved the adoption of 112 as the national emergency number at all levels and across relevant agencies. It is part of measures to strengthen Nigeria's emergency lifeline and build a unified and coordinated national response to emergencies. NEC also approved the establishment of a multi-agency implementation committee and program coordination led by the Office of the Vice President and the National Communications Commission, NCC. The approval was part of decisions taken at the 157th meeting of the NEC, held virtually and chaired by Vice President Kashim Shettima. Shettima said the 112 emergency lifeline had become necessary to prevent delay caused by bureaucratic bottlenecks, noting that what the citizens seek urgently when confronted by natural disaster or insecurity is an urgent response and not bureaucracy.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has revised its official database, restoring Senator David Mark as the national chairman of the African Democratic Congress (ADC) and reinstating other principal figures within the party's National Working Committee. A review of the Commission's website confirmed the updated leadership structure of the ADC, listing Mark as the chairman and the former Osun State Governor Rauf Aregbesola as the national secretary. Also reinstated Almani Hamad as national treasurer, Akibu Dalatu as national financial secretary, and Osaime Osunbo as national legal advisor. Recall that earlier in April, INEC had taken down their names from its website in compliance with a directive issued by the Court of Appeal, a decision that prompted protest from the faction loyal to Mark as well as criticism from opposition voices. In a significant tone, however, the Supreme Court yesterday nullified the earlier ruling of the appellate court. Nonetheless, despite the Supreme Court's intervention removing the immediate legal hurdle that led to INEC's earlier action, the core lawsuit challenging the legitimacy of the party's leadership is still pending before the Federal High Court.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's political landscape faces renewed uncertainty following a decisive ruling by the Supreme Court on leadership crisis within the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and the African Democratic Congress (ADC). Stakeholders who spoke with BCOS News say the judgment has raised concerns about the preparedness of political parties ahead of the forthcoming elections. Details of this report is presented by Bemisola Adebayo.
Court nullified the People's Democratic Party's National Convention held in Ibadan, ruling that the exercise contravened a subsisting court order. The judgment effectively invalidates the leadership that emerged from the convention and underscores the need for a fresh process conducted in compliance with legal provisions. In a related development, the court also set aside earlier status quo orders on the African Democratic Congress leadership dispute and directed that the matter be returned to the Federal High Court for proper hearing. A human rights activist, Abiodun Bamiboye, described the rulings as significant, noting that they have heightened public concern about the readiness of affected political parties for the electoral process.
Nigerians, as we speak, are not even sure whether any of those parties is going to be on ballots as a strong opposition or contendant against the ruling APC.
Also speaking, the Oyo State chairman of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Hakeem Abbas, urged political parties to prioritize internal cohesion and adhere strictly to their constitutions to avoid recurring legal disputes.
In 2014 or 2013 to be precise, the APC was formed, and I felt the APC started as a new political party. I would have expected the ADC also, members of the opposition who went into the ADC, to have started a new party and register it, so that there won't be issues like this.
A legal practitioner, Adebimpe Adeolawo, explained that while the decision on the ADC aligns with due judicial process, the PDP's Board of Trustees now has a critical role to play in stabilizing the party ahead of the elections.
The appellant, which is the ADC chairman and all other NWC, their prayer before court is that the Federal High Court has no jurisdiction. But before you can argue that jurisdiction, it shows that the High Court must have seized of the matter, determine whether they have jurisdiction or not. The matter before the court has not been opened at all, has not been argued at all, has not been heard at all. You just jump and rush to Court of Appeal. And in the wisdom of the Supreme Court returned that matter back to Federal High Court for proper adjudication. The issue of PDP, the judgment is of two ways. Many people, the two factions have been celebrating whether the judgment is in their favor. But to me, what I see in that judgment is that the judgment only activates the BOT to do the needful. Because if that judgment nullified the Ibadan national convention, it shows that there is no conventions that are recognized by law. So with the situation now, it is expected of BOT, of PDP, to rise to the occasion and then see how to reconcile the both factions together and then move on.
Meanwhile, the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, SCN, has approached the courts seeking the registration of some political parties, citing concerns over compliance with constitutional provisions. However, some legal analysts have advised that such actions may be better considered after the resolution of pending cases before the courts. As developments continue to unfold, attention remains on how the affected political parties will resolve their internal challenges and reposition for the elections in months ahead. Bimsola Adebayo, BCOS News.
On the foreign scene, Russia has today launched more than 400 drones at Ukraine in a daytime attack, injuring 10 people in the western city of Ternopil, Ukraine. Ukraine's Air Force said Russia attacked the country with 409 drones between 8 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. local time today. It added that the Air Force unit downed and neutralized 388 of them in the north, south, center, and west of the country. The Air Force had earlier said that Russia sent 210 drones at Ukraine in an overnight attack. Since the beginning of the war more than 4 years ago, Russia has mainly carried out major drone and missile strikes at night. In recent weeks, it has repeatedly sent hundreds of drones and missiles during the daytime, setting a record for the number of weapons used in one of such strikes on the 24th of March. Meanwhile, Ukrainian drones struck Russia's Black Sea port of Tuase today for the fourth time in 16 days, as authorities struggled with a mounting environmental disaster from toxic black smoke clouds and oil leaking into the sea.
To end this edition of Newscope, here again are the top stories. President Bola Tinubu has declared insecurity and poverty as national emergencies, warning that the twin crises pose great threats to jobs, productivity, and national stability as Nigeria marks the 2026 Workers' Day celebration.